Welcome back to Rational Discourse Weekly. We have a new background for episode 34, filmed on Thursday, January 23rd. I'm William Garrison.
And I'm Michael Aune.
I was about to say that I was Michael Aune, but he is.
I mean, in his dreams, understandably. That's where he would go.
This week we talk about Ray Comfort.
He has a new YouTube video out called Evolution vs. God, and it's going to make you want to bang your head against a wall if you have just a modicum of intelligence. So, anyway, we're probably a little more ranty this week than usual, but, you know, whatever.
For good reason.
For very good reason. Because, wow.
Yeah.
Just wow.
So stay tuned. So, we've just watched Ray Comfort's video, Evolution versus God, and
my brain hurts. So it's a 38-minute YouTube video. You can search for it.
We'll also be linking it in the show notes, as well as, which we'll discuss in a bit. Ray Comfort on Facebook kind of did a...
he was talking about the reaction.
The feedback and reaction that he was getting from the video. He kind of did like a couple little paragraphs just talking about his stance and why he thinks atheists are wrong and yada yada.
We'll come to that. So just some quick overview. It's about, like I said, 38 minutes long. It's interview style, so you just see a microphone keep getting placed into people's faces. And he sort of sticks with like 6 or 7 people throughout the whole thing. And, you know, through various means tries to prove a point. Namely, that people who are adhering to faith in like scientific fact or evidence-based reasoning are doing the exact same thing that religious people are doing with their faith. And so if you can show that they're having to rely on the same sort of faith, then they can't say that faith is stupid, which then apparently proves the Bible. I don't know, he goes from generic faith to biblical literalism pretty smoothly.
The interesting thing is, an interesting theme, I guess, that I would note is by the end of the video, he uses some wordplay to try to equate the fact that...
I broke the table again.
Because humans are fallible, that ideas that we hold can be fallible, and that the Word of God is infallible. But what I think is interesting that he uses wordplay with a word, or a broad word like faith, that actually has several deeper meanings, because I don't agree with me or disagree with me if you're on my level, but the difference between religious faith and faith in evidence that you yourself didn't identify is kind of different.
Well, he's getting to a point which is, at some point, everything we believe is based on brute facts. Things that we basically have to accept that are true in order to build our worldview. So, like, I believe that there's an external world to my brain, and it is made of physical objects that are distinct from me. That's a brute fact. I sort of have to accept that in order to make sense of anything else. Can't necessarily prove it. You know, you could get into, like, the idea of the Cartesian demon that's constantly tricking you into thinking that there's these things, and you're actually wrong the whole time. But I accept that. But I also accept that because there has really been no reason why I should doubt that. There's been no good reason given to sort of discard this whole body of evidence, this whole strongly interwoven worldview in favor of something else. So just because there's the possibility of something doesn't mean that I should immediately throw away the rest of my beliefs. No, it's an absurd proposition to believe that all of this is a mistake, or I'm floating in the ether as a disembodied mind, and a demon is playing tricks on me.
Yeah,
it's dumb.
I think it goes from all levels. Like, I can take at faith that I'm not drinking cyanide. Now, that is verifiable. If I really wanted to find out if this contains cyanide, there are chemical tests that I could run. But the fact that it tastes... I don't know if cyanide has a taste, actually. But the fact that it tastes fine and I'm not dying
Yeah.
That's one, but that's just like a small example. But
Well, it's
the
like they did
scale is
neutral
interesting.
faith. So, like, neutral faith is just sort of the supposition that you are willing to accept it without analyzing it to a further level. But it also doesn't mean that you couldn't analyze it to a further level. Now, again, at some point you sort of hit rock bottom. You don't have to just accept something.
Yeah.
But this whole conflation of sort of the pragmatic, everyday faith that we have. I have faith that the sun will come up tomorrow. Yes, I cannot know that with a capital K. 100% absolutely. For all I know, right now, it's night, and the sun has just gone dark, and I won't know that until tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. the sun still hasn't risen. And I'll go, oh, crap, I was wrong. But I have no good reason to believe that.
Right.
Then there's the sort of positive religious faith, which is like a commitment to something. It's a self-reinforcing ideal that says within itself pretty much that being faithful proves your faith in the thing to which you have to put faith. And it's cyclical.
We've talked about that circular logic before, like the Bible tells me that God exists, and
but
the Bible is true because it's the Word of God. Like,
but anyway, the whole thing, and it comes up several times, is he's sort of hitting on this point that Richard Dawkins makes in The God Delusion, where he says, faith is the great cop-out, the great excuse to evade the need to think and evaluate evidence. So the whole purpose of this video in many ways is to try and undermine people's ability to provide evidence, and if you can do that, then you can prove that they're having faith in the matter, particularly in this case in evolution, and then you can say, well, you might as well just have faith in God because you have faith in this, and you can't prove it. And he does it through really, really obnoxious, bullshitty ways. The first is for like the first 10 minutes, he keeps asking for observable evidence of evolution, but he does not define what he's asking for, except that he says that it can't be like the fossil record because he can't observe that. So what he wants is basically present tense evolution. He wants something he can watch a rabbit turn into a hippopotamus, within his lifetime or something like that. Which, of course, evolution pretty much by definition does not work on those time scales for large organisms. So he's asking for something that's unobtainable. And then using that against the people when they can't answer the question.
So to point onto that, because the way I logically reason his method in this video, one of two ways. Either he fundamentally doesn't understand how evolution works, or he's being disingenuous and is turning that he's warping it to try to dissuade the viewers to his side.
This is totally framing. It's basically all an ad hominem attack, right? He's undermining the character of the people he's talking to, who are in the video all admitted atheists or agnostics who believe in evolution, so as to strengthen the position. If he can show that these people are all wrong, or they can't answer a simple question about, give me observable evidence, well, then obviously the answer is biblical literalism, which, again, he just makes that jump. He does not... He goes from proving God to proving Jesus and the Bible and everything within it, which is that's such a fallacious argument, it makes my head hurt. But another thing he does is he keeps asking with the observable evidence things, he wants a change of kind. So when people give examples of speciation that we've seen, whether it's small fish populations is one of the examples they give or anything like that, he goes, oh, no, those are just adaptations. I'm looking for a change of kind. And what he's asking for is I want an example where, a rabbit turned into a hippo. Well...
Not where a rabbit turned into a slightly different rabbit.
Yeah, and going back to your point, that either proves he has absolutely no idea how Darwinian evolution works, which is a series of adaptations that over time lead to something that we will retroactively call a new kind. You can't point it out in the chain. If you put any given animal in between its children and its ancestors, its immediate ancestors, its parents, it will effectively look identical. You can take any rabbit that's out there right now, and you can say, this is a rabbit, and here's its kids, and here's its parents, and they look almost identical. But if you go down the line, 50,000 generations, although between any given generation you'll never notice a significant difference, between the beginning and the end, They can be completely different animals.
So let me ask you, because I'm guessing you probably know more about this than me. I think there are two ways that we can kind of tell that broader jump, and that would be the fossil record and DNA.
Fossil record, genetic change. I mean, we can see. You can look at the fossil record, and you can say it looks like they line up this way as far as our common ancestry, and then you can compare genetic material between examples, and you can say, hey, we're 99.1% a match. I'm not saying that's the accurate number, but I know it's close to that, to a chimp. But we're 91% match to, I think it's like an earthworm, or 97. We're actually all remarkably similar. But in any case, you can show that basically the two evidence trees, which are not, they don't rely on one another. So you can just test the genetic material, not knowing what the fossil relationship is, the ancestral relationship is, get a percentage match between two species, and then go back and say, oh, well, based on how it looks like we think the evolutionary tree was, this seems to corroborate that evidence. They're independent and yet supporting bits of evidence towards a position. But he won't allow for any of that. No, because he can't witness it immediately. He can't watch the change happen in front of him, which is ridiculous. That's not an argument against Darwinian evolution. That's just basically, by definition, how evolution works in the natural world. It doesn't happen on a time scale that we will readily observe.
The thing that made me a little bit angry is the entire video focuses, and it's basically comparing evolutionary evidence, being a couple of which being the fossil record and DNA that we have over the years, equating that to a known man-written book like the Bible. The fact that you can compare them as bits of evidence for these belief systems, as he calls them, because he's trying to put them on the same playing field.
And he just does, which is the bullshit move. Yeah. He just says, well, the Bible is the alternative. He gives nothing to support that. He gives no move. Why isn't it the Quran? Why isn't it the Vedas? You know, you can't just say, well, if it's not X, then it must be Y. Well, no. Eliminating one possibility leaves an infinite number of other possibilities. Infinity minus 1 is still infinity, right? Gigantic number minus 1 is still a gigantic number. So just because you've eliminated atheism...
Well, you've eliminated evolution, which could still technically leave atheism. I just wanted to mention that because...
He is unfairly equating the two.
Even if he somehow, through this video and through his Facebook post, was able to disprove evolution, which isn't going to happen, technically atheism would still be a viable alternative. It just means that evolution wouldn't point to...
Evolution is an explanation for the origination of species. That's all it is. Now,
evolution just happens to line up well with atheism because...
I hate this.
Being an atheist means that we don't believe a God was in charge of the way species exist on the earth today. And
it categorically denies the possibility of intelligent design.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, intelligent design theorists very often invoke evolution as a tool through which God could create species. So as long as you're not a literalist who is saying that it has to be 6,000 years old, really there's no problem there.
Yeah.
But in any case, so there's just this, he keeps posing unanswerable questions, then uses that against the position because he's presented a question that doesn't have an answer with the terms that he's using.
Yeah.
Which is bullshit. And that's like the first 10 to 12 minutes. It's absolutely bullshit. And then he moves on to some other crap. He basically sticks on those same things for a little while. He then goes around like minute 18. He starts talking about the misattribution of atheism to certain famous figures in the past. Like, or present, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Lincoln, Hemingway,
Thomas Edison,
Benjamin
Albert
Franklin, Einstein. And then goes through, there's 8 examples, I think, and he says the only one who actually was an atheist was Hemingway, and he committed suicide, so there's your poster child. What the hell is that?
He basically...
He picks out one guy out of an arbitrary group.
He basically said, look, there's been one famous atheist, he blew his brains out. Well,
Yeah,
first
he's
of all,
trying to show that like because some of these people he's interviewing on the street can't name a famous atheist off the top of their head, which I don't trust the editing in this to save my life anyway. I'm sure several of them gave answers because not everyone who he interviewed was shown in that segment.
yeah, that segment only featured a few, and of course he's not gonna. He's trying to drive home a point, and
Yes.
he's not.
Disingenuously.
He's not going to show. In fact, yeah, he only asked like 3 or 4 people who couldn't come up with a name. The other 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people
don't
that he
know.
interviewed weren't in that segment.
Yeah.
Because I know Michael and I can name a few. Penn Jillette, Teller, his sidekick, as you want to say. The late Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett. The last 3, I don't remember how many names.
Yeah,
the last 3 or 4 have been very public about it, writing books and doing debates, and so they are poster childs of atheism.
Yeah. And there are many more. The inability to, I couldn't name 6 famous Hindus, if I needed to. That doesn't mean that Hinduism is wrong, or the fact that there was a bad Hindu proves that Hinduism is wrong. That is absolutely... the list of terrible Christians I could trot out as counter evidence.
Yeah.
Neither one is a good argument.
Yeah.
They're both bullshit. And so the fact that... Okay, anyway, it's not a big part. It's just really, really stupid. And the fact that he goes, here's your postal check. Okay, Hemingway was like a tortured individual who killed himself. That's not funny to even, like... Whatever. The next thing he moves on to is the idea that without God, there are no absolutes in morality, which is a common argument, not originating with him.
Yep.
But in any case, and this is all very quick. It's all like 5 seconds of people trying to hem and haw an answer of these like college students. He keeps asking undergrads to answer these questions, with the exception of like 2 or 3 of the people.
And most of the professors actually give fairly good answers, and
yeah, like P.Z. Myers is one of them, who if you follow atheism at all or skepticism, secularism, he's commonly pops up. I don't know how I feel about him, honestly, but he's a core person. He's the biggest name that's in there, and he keeps giving answers, and then those are simply dismissed. Well, no, that's not the answer I was looking for. Well, that's the answer to the question, though.
Right.
You idiot. I'm really annoyed right now. But anyway, so the morality thing is complete crap. He basically is trying to say, if you don't have God, you can't have absolute morality. If you don't have absolute morality, anything goes, which is really why you're an atheist. Because you want to get away with whatever you want. Which is so riddled with errors, I don't even know where to start. It's false on its face. There's nothing that says you can't have absolute morality without a God. That's a whole different argument you could have. There's nothing that says that you need absolute morals. You don't have to have absolute morality to have basically like absolutist relative morality, which is something for an article or something. He keeps getting people to be unable to answer a question and then uses that to completely dismiss every other option except for Christianity.
Yeah, during this section, I'll chime in real quick. During this section, he asks a couple of questions, like he asks the atheists or agnostics that he's interviewing questions like, have you ever told a lie? Have you ever stolen? And basically then labels them, you're a liar, you're a thief.
He goes,
and
if you lie all the time, what are you? And if you have stolen, what are you? And he goes,
if you've
I'm a liar and a thief.
If you've lusted after a member of the opposite sex, you're an adulterer by heart, using like a Bible quote in that situation, or the Bible's version of morality.
He's going after the Ten Commandments, sort of, but the whole idea is he's trying to get people to admit that they're sinful.
That they're sinful and somehow correlate that to their atheism.
Yeah,
and belief in evolution.
He gets a bit preachy, and he starts talking about how, what if you died tomorrow?
Yeah, he
invokes Pascal's wager, basically. Well, if you die and you're wrong, and you are this sinful person you've admitted to being, well, then aren't you screwed? Well, first of all, this going back to the, can you name famous atheists? And then this. You're basically trying to say, like, well, what if you're wrong, you don't know, or what if what if everyone believes that there's a God? Or what if everyone's wrong about their position? That has no bearing on the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
Everyone in the world could believe in God, and there could be no God. And everyone's just wrong. And vice versa. No one could believe in God, and God is there. And everyone's wrong. Doesn't matter who believes it. Your belief does not dictate the truth or falsity of the statement.
I think that was one of our first episodes of Rational Discourse Weekly, titled "Truth is Not a Democracy."
Yes, and it is
where we talked about that at great length.
Not. The fact that most people are religious in the world compared to the other options that are out there proves nothing.
Well, and
It proves what most people believe. That's it.
the stance that science takes, for example. You can be in a certain field of science, and it doesn't matter what the scientific consensus is. If your research is on a specific topic, you're going to approach that topic like it doesn't matter what the consensus is. You're going to approach it to look at the data and basically try to extrapolate off that data some some notion of what reality is. The scientific consensus has changed over time, and that's just because scientists in general don't care what the consensus is if they're doing research into a specific topic. If tomorrow they find out evidence that we're not ancestors, or that we're not, what am I trying to say? That we don't come from.
If we don't share a common ancestor with
primates. That we're actually more closely related to the finch.
It's something that needs to be investigated, but it doesn't disprove evolution. It's one piece of evidence.
Or even if there was a better explanation than evolution, let's say we scrapped evolution, that's fine. Scientists would look at the data, and if that was the scientific consensus, then that's would be the latest theory. Evolution is just...
And it doesn't preclude the idea that intelligent design is accurate, right?
Right.
So it could be that science goes, wow, the best solution we can come up with is an intelligent design, or here's a fact that we cannot explain. It's been thrown out there that people say that evolution is basically, it's not disprovable, and therefore it's not truly scientific. And the challenge has been thrown out there, like, you find one out-of-era fossil, if you find a horse in the Jurassic period, that is a massive blow to evolution. And for all of the people doing research all around the world for 120 years or 30 years with this theory floating out there in public knowledge, hasn't happened. Only takes one, basically.
Right.
One fossilized horse, true horse that's out of order, because then maybe you get the flood story where everything supposedly died at the same time, right? So you would think that you'd have these clusters.
Dinosaurs are on the ark as well.
You'd have a dinosaur next to a horse next to a hawk.
Yeah.
You don't get that. You get these very strict strata.
Yeah.
In any case, it's neither here nor there. The main point is, if you can sit through it, it will anger you. It will prove to you just how disingenuous people can be in order to try and undermine a position they either, in this position I think you were dead right, either A, don't know, or B, are being shady and trying to undermine it because they do know enough to then try and weaken the position. Either way, it's bad. And it ends with basically preaching, if you're sinful and you might be wrong, you should believe in God. Although one thing I do want to touch on just real quick before we end, because it hurt my brain. At one point, when he's talking about Pascal's wager, and someone asks, well, how do you know? And he goes, well, I mean, how do you know that your wife is real? And you would go, well, I just know. I know her. Of course she's real. And he goes, well, I have the same knowledge of God. And you don't. Period. I have evidence-based, observable, verifiable by independent sources proof that my wife would exist in that situation.
I can stick I can stick a needle in her veins and pull blood from her to do tests on.
Yeah.
You cannot do that with God.
The type of faith you need to know that your wife is real, down here. Regular, normal, run-of-the-mill faith. Type of faith you need to God, up here. No evidence, just have to buy it.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, we'll see you next week. There will be an article probably on this. I'm going to be real upset. I'm going to yell at him.
We're going to link both the video. Again, it's called Evolution versus God, but we're going to link the video in the show notes. It's about 35 minutes long, the last 10 minutes mostly being preaching.
And actually, I typed up some notes so we could reference them for this, and we'll put a link to those as well, just a direct link to the site. And so that way, if you want to kind of touch on these, it has minute markers, give or take 30 seconds for some of the things we've touched on. If you don't want to sit through it, which I couldn't blame you, but you actually want to reference the source material without wanting to blow your brains out at the end of it all. Like Hemingway, who proves we're all bad. Oh, God. Which is the topic of this show quite often.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, thanks for watching.
See you next week.
Yep.
I have indeed.
It's called blasphemy. It's very serious to use God's name as a cuss word.
I don't believe in blaspheming since I don't believe in God. So if you don't believe in God, how can you blaspheme?
Well, if I don't believe in certain laws and still violate them, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So we're still guilty even
Blasphemy
though
is
we
not a
deny
law.
a law exists, so we even don't know about it. One to go, and I appreciate your honesty, Jacob. Jesus said if you look at a woman and lust for her, you commit adultery with her in your heart. Have you ever looked at a woman with lust?
Why, yes, I look at many women with lust in my heart.
Have you ever looked at a guy with lust?
With lust?
Lust.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Not recently.
I have indeed.
Having sex outside of marriage?
No, not yet.
Are you looking at pornography?
Yes.
You're lusting after women?
Of course.
Have you ever looked at a woman?
Seriously, I'm so mad right now. Okay.
We should call this one Atheists versus Ray Comfort.
My brain versus Ray Comfort. And he's winning out of the sheer absurdity of what he's saying. Ugh.